Greetings, adventurers. This is DM Kurt, and I'm going to do something a little different. I'm not going to have the camera pointing at my handsome face. I'm just going to be pointing the camera at the product, and we're going to be doing a little review. I want to talk about Spelljammer, the 5th edition version, and I'm going to be keeping in mind comparisons to the 2nd edition version, which I talked about in one of my last videos. Okay, so first question is it worth it? Price-wise, it's at the same point as a player's handbook and a DM screen, give or take. And this does come with a DM screen in these pink and purple pastel colors, which seems to be their primary color palette. Now, this has a bunch of useful charts and information for doing the Spelljammer game. However, there's almost nothing on it that is also on the regular DM screen. So if you want to have all that information, you would literally have to have both DM screens, one set up basically inside the other, and be flipping between the two. That's not the most convenient, but it is doable. So what's the rest of the money for? Well, the rest of the money is for three, count them, three, hardback books. Now, I was surprised that they're all hardback. They're 64 pages each. That's about 192 pages, if my math is correct. And yes, they are hardback. First of all, let's start off with the monster manual section. So they're calling it Boo's Astral Menagerie, and there's the pink and purple palette again, named after Minsk and Boo from those old Waterdeep games, Baldur's Gate. So the character's been in there a long time. I'm not a fan of the cutesiness type of the art, but okay, whatever. There's about, I would say 72 different spell blocks for monsters, and some of them are cute, and some of them are, well, I'll call horrific. So here we go. Big, scary, ugly, plant-like creatures. Big, spiky nightmare fuel. Okay, cool. We have Astral Elves, which are a playable race. I'm going to call them in between. But here we go. Here is an example of what I'm talking about. The Auto Gnome, cutesy, and this guy, horrific. We have another example. Cosmic Horror, CR18. It's just tentacles and teeth and fangs and eyes and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then you have little talking penguin dudes who are merchants. So, between the cute and the not so cute, you could take this either direction. Now, I did a little count, and it's kind of 50-50 between cutesy and horrific. I do like the Solar Dragon. So the Ancient being a CR20, and there being smaller versions of this with different stat blocks. Okay, so you have yourself basically a monster manual. It's not the full monster manual. It's more like a compendium, but it's something. Not bad. Not bad. We have a module called the Light of Xaryxis. Now, I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but it runs basically levels 5 and then end up at level 9. It has some things in it that are not too bad. Let's see if I have my notes here. So there is the fact that it requires the 3 core rule books. Spelljammer is not a standalone thing. They have a creature in there called a Starlight Apparition in Boo's Astral Menagerie. Basically what the module says is, if one of your very, very important NPCs dies a little too early, bring them back as the equivalent of a Jedi Force Ghost, so that they can still give the advice that they need to give. The adventure starts on land, and there's a huge threat to the player character's homeworld. This is the trope of low-level heroes who end up saving the world. You've seen that from Tomb of Annihilation, Night Below, a lot of other campaigns. So that is not new. It does introduce the ship-to-ship combat using the Astral Adventurer's Guide, which has about 1.5 pages worth of combat rules compared to the 20 pages of combat rules in the previous version that I talked about in the previous video. There is an arena battle, kind of like Anakin and Amidala and them were in, you know what I mean? Yep, straight out of Star Wars. The PCs will encounter Astral Elves, the Hadozi. There's a Flumph. I think they're silly. You can totally cut that one out. Sirlons, Quaggoth, Neogi, Umberhulks, Githyanki, the Gif, which I think are kind of silly. Rygar, Kendori, Autognomes, Voidskavers, Vampirates, the Undead, who still ply the trade of piracy. And Artuk, which is those weird plant-like dudes that are evil, creepy, alien type stuff. They will take you into Wild Space, the Astral Sea, and a place called Doom Space, which is kind of cool. You know, this big old spooky doomed universe type place. Not too bad. I mean, you're only going to run it so many times, and I think it's kind of questionable that we have this setting box where you have your Astral Adventurer's Guide, which is good for both players and DMs. And then you have the rest of it, which is pretty much DM material. So, I don't know who's going to buy this. DMs, I would imagine, but if you're a player and you're going to buy this, you're only going to get use of just a little bit of it. Here's the important part. The Astral Adventurer's Guide. Not so much the pink and purple, more blues. But okay. So, what did we have? First, hooks. Adventure hooks to get you into space. Now, we had that in the previous version, the 2E version. We have 2 backgrounds, 6 new races. The other version only had a race of smarter lizard men. I didn't find any of the 6 new races to be really that impressive or exciting. I didn't really feel the desire to play them. Astral Elves are just elves. Autognomes are little mechanical versions of Warforged or meet gnomes. Just goofy. The Hadozi, it's monkey dudes who can fly via gliding. So they're kind of sugar glider, chimpanzee kind of ish, but higher evolved. Spelljamming duels. We had rules for what if you try to basically take over the helm of another ship. That's kind of interesting. All right. What happens, rules for like if a ship's on fire. Combat rules. So we only had 1.5 pages of combat rules. And the question is, what will bring a ship from its warp speed of 100 million miles a day down to its cruising speed or flying speed, its impulse power speed? In here, they say, anything big enough to have its own air envelope and gravity plane. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, a tiny creature or a block of wood 1 foot by 2 foot by 3 foot are examples of things that can have an air pocket around them. Okay, you can't do that. There's no way you could travel through space at any rate of speed and have just the tiniest little rock start slowing you down constantly. What is big enough to have a gravity plane? Here we go. A ship or maybe other things. What's the definition there? Okay, a ship, most of them are in the 10-ton plus range. The astral whales, so a gargantuan-sized creature that can move through the astral space, that has its own gravity plane. What about a size huge? We have an undefined term. I don't know what to do with that other than make a ruling of my own and say 10 tons, which is second edition rule. They talk about air quality. What if you have a ship with the air pocket around it and people are in it? You know, how long is the air going to last? They have rules for that. They changed the way that the prime material plane works versus the astral plane. That's fine. You know, they're just rewriting of the lore. It's understandable and it works. So you have your own little solar system. So let's take the Earth, the Sun, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Pluto, all that. That's one little solar system, and that would be one pocket of wild space. You have no air in between the worlds. You have just air around each planet and no air in between the worlds. You exit that solar system, and now you're in the astral sea. So just this round pocket, and then now you're out in the astral. And when you're in the astral, you don't need to eat or breathe, and you automatically know the direction to the next solar system. Seems a little lazy. You don't have any navigational problems whatsoever. Okay, all right. You can fish in the astral because there's fish-like things that just kind of float around in it. All right. They do have rules for weightlessness. You are at disadvantage to do hand-to-hand combat if you're weightless, unless you have a special new proficiency in weightless fighting. Okay. There were 2 new spells. That's it, just 2, which is less than the other version, the 2E version. And there's only one type of Spelljammer helm. You either have one or you don't. Okay, all right. The combat requires that you roll side initiative. So your party goes as one unit. Your ship goes as one unit, not rolling for individuals. And the other side goes as one unit. All weapons on all ships can fire in any direction. The ship can pivot, spin, or rotate at will. No facing, no fields of fire. Now in our 2E overview, ships had to be facing in different directions, and it mattered. You're not doing the grid combat. You're not having tokens on the table. You're just doing basically theater of the mind, and you're treating combat as if it's just flying creatures. Okay? Just everybody uses a flying speed. This is better if you're looking to do theater of the mind and not have to deal with a whole bunch of miniatures and stuff. And that's preferable for some people. Your preference may vary. They don't have differences in maneuverability, exactly. There's damage thresholds on ships. Now, the ships have a stat called damage threshold, and it can be like a 12. What does that mean? What does damage threshold mean? They don't tell you. You have to go find that out somewhere else. This is not a standalone product. You will need the core 3 books, and you'll have to find what damage threshold means. Basically, an attack has to do 12 points or more, or you ignore it. If it does 12 or more points, it works normally. If it does less, it does nothing. Okay, that would have been nice to know, but now you have to go look it up because it's not in the books that you just bought. The Astral Adventurer's Guide does have a fold-out map of the Rock of Brawl, which was a location in the previous version. It has descriptions of what's going on, who lives there, what do they do, and that's going to be a jumping-off point at some point in the Light of Xaryxis. Now, I'm not giving you a spoiler to say that you do visit the Rock of Brawl at some point. I'm not saying what happens there. So I'm going to use that little technicality. The Astral Adventurer's Guide, it's kind of your all. This is the book you're going to get the most use out of, I'm thinking. The monsters you may use, you might grab third-party stuff, you might use stuff that you can find an excuse to bring from Monster Manual. I like Kobold Press, so I'm going to be using stuff from there. One thing I found interesting is that for the ships, okay? They give you an armor class, and then in parentheses, they state the type of hull. Wood, metal, ceramic. Why do they tell you that? Well, it mattered in the second edition version because your ships might have to do item saving throws against certain types of attack. Here, they don't have item saving throws, so they just kind of have that as a holdover, and it's useful for maybe certain types of spells if you wanted to do heat metal, or which I don't think would handle that large of an item, a hull of a ship. If you wanted to place wall of fire on top of a wooden decked ship, that would matter, I guess. But it doesn't really explain why the type of hull matters. What I also noticed is that they don't have a whole lot of options for spending money to upgrade your ship. You can't do modifications like adding armor or lightening it or adding more rigging, etc. You can maybe buy a couple more ballistas, but if it already comes outfitted with ballistas, then maybe you just repair the ones you have when they get damaged. So what's the point? I would say it's as complete as you're gonna get for 5th edition books. You're gonna have to plug some of the holes in the combat system, but it's not entirely worthless. It's not such that you have to scrap it. You could, but you don't have to. Just plug a couple little holes. One thing that bothered me is with the Githyanki, they didn't mention anything about their special silver swords they used to have, which could cut the silver cord that an Astral Traveler would have and automatically kill them on a crit. But that's just a little piece of lore from Fiend Folio that hadn't made it all the way from 1st to 5th. All in all, this might be the last of the decent 5e products that we get before 2024. Because we have 3 serviceable books, a serviceable DM screen for adding all the stuff you need, and I'll describe it in a little more detail. So, what we have is rules for weightlessness, rules for suffocating, a kind of shorthand of how the astral plane works, the astral sea, and the various pockets of your wild space there, how air and gravity work in a simple little diagram, encounter tables, ship encounters. Your ship runs into another ship. What kind of ship is it? Rules for crashing, starting distance when you pop into your combat. What are the ranges for the rough estimates of ranges for some of these things? Tasks that people might have to do on a ship, little quirks about the ship, a few items of types of cargo you might have. So I mean, that's useful, but that's what it is. There it is in a nutshell. This is DM Kurt. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comments. I'll try to answer you as best I can. And that's all for tonight. Please like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.